Hey guys, welcome back to IE Classroom. I hope you are doing well. So, I hope your theory exams for the May June 2024 series have gone well and is still going on well. So, I have finished my May June theory exams and now only left with 3 exams for the MCQs. And so today I decided to make a video for the 0625 Physics Paper 2 Variant 2 from Feb March 2024, which has been recently released. Also, for those who had appeared for the Feb March series, I hope you all had great results and congratulate yourselves and from all of the YouTube community towards yourselves. And if you haven't got good grades, don't worry because we can always work on the grades don't determine your life. Anyways, so we start off looking at this paper 0625 2022 Feb March 24. It's an MCQ paper for 45 minutes, which consisting of 40 questions. If you're new to this channel, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends so that they can benefit from past papers too. Alright, let's move on. Remember that this for this paper 2024, the weight of 1 kg is 9.8 and not 10. Alright, now the first question says the student has a measuring cylinder which contains water and has a balance. Which of these could be used to find the volume of a small metal sphere? Now remember that to find the volume, we just need to find the initial volume of the water in the cylinder and then the new volume after it immersed the metal sphere. So if you only want to find the volume, she only has to use the measuring cylinder containing the water. She does not have to use the balance. That would be for the density. The second is that the diagram shows a solid object on flat surface with 2 forces acting on it. There's a 3 Newton force to the left and the 4 Newton force to the right. Resultant force is in the direction of the force which is greater, that is 4 Newtons here. The difference is 1 Newton and the larger force is towards the right. So it will be 1 Newtons towards the right. Pretty easy question. A ball is falling towards the ground. What transfer between energy sources is taking place? So when a ball is held at the ground, if it's falling, that means it must have been held at a height before. And since GPE is equals to mgh, so that means the ball has gravitational potential energy. Now, as it falls, the gravitational energy is converted to kinetic energy, which is energy stored in a moving object. Therefore, the energy is being changed from gravitational potential energy to kinetic energy, option C. Which row contains one scalar quantity and one vector quantity? So scalar quantities are quantities which only contain magnitude, whereas vector quantities contain a magnitude and a direction. So here's for option A, it says quantity 1 is energy, which is a scalar quantity, and quantity 2 is velocity, which is a vector quantity. So we can be sure of this. For the rest of them, I could say that mass and time both are scalar, momentum and weight they both are vector, and distance and temperature both are scalar. So the other options are not suitable. The the table gives data about 4 liquids: W, X, Y, and Z. None of these liquids mix each other. Which of all of these liquids are put in the same container and they settle to form 4 separate layers? Which statement is correct? So they're probably asking us that they have different densities, so how would they be arranged? So to find this, you have to use the density, calculate the density of all of them. Now density of W, density is mass to the volume, so 10 by 10 is 1. 20 divided by 15 would be 1.33333. 30 divided by 50, okay, let me just work that out. 30 divided by 50 is 0.6. And 40 divided by 50 is basically 0.8. So it says that W forms the layer below X. Now, W has a lower density, X would be the lowest, so there would nothing be below X, so A is definitely wrong. X forms the top layer, no, X would form the bottom layer because it's the most dense. Y forms the bottom layer, Y is the least dense, again that is also not correct, it would be at the top. Z forms the layer below Y, Z would be below Y because Z is the next density after Y, so indeed D is correct. A weightless beam is placed on a pivot as shown, forces PQR act on the beam, and it's balanced. Which equation is correct? Now for this, we need to use the concept of moments. So you have a pivot here, and you have basically Q force, P force, and R force. Now as per, if something is balanced, then the clockwise moment should be equal to the anti-clockwise. I'm just writing anti-clockwise because just to explain you guys, anti-clockwise. Now you have to see that what is causing the clockwise moment here. Clockwise basically means in this direction, which is in the direction of the clock. Alright, so you see that force R will cause a clockwise moment. So we know that R into A, that would cause a clockwise moment. And also even Q, because Q is moving upwards. So B into Q. And the anti-clockwise is basically P, which would go in this direction rather. So is equals to P into D. Now as you can see on all of these equations, R into A is separated out. So we will also want to separate out. So R into A will be basically P into D minus B into Q. I hope this question is clear. So R into A, for which option do we have? P into D minus Q into B. I think this is the most suitable option here because it exactly matches our equation. This has plus, so that's not wrong. And this is P into C. So again, these are completely wrong. P into D and these are plus. So this D would be the correct answer. An object is moving at 3 meters per second. A force acts on the object. After a time, the object is moving at negative 4.0. That means in the opposite direction. The mass of the object is 5 kg. What is the change in momentum? Now, initially it had a momentum of 5 into 3, which is 15, positive 15. But now it has a momentum of 5 into 4, which is negative 20. And how do you go from positive 15? Positive 15 to negative 20 will involve negative 35. Therefore, A is the correct answer. The diagram shows a column of a liquid. The pressure at the bottom is 6,000 newtons. Now, pressure in a liquid is equals to rho, which is density, into G and into H, where G is the gravitational attraction or gravitational force and H is the height. So we know the pressure is basically 6,000 divided by, we don't know the density, which that's not defined, but we can put the G value in the division. So G is 9.8 and the height is 50 centimeters. Be very careful. It has to be in meters because the force is pascals, which is meters. 0.50. All right. That gives us a force of about 1224 and therefore it will be 1200. For the calculation, it looks somewhat like this. If you're confused, 9.8 into 0.50. Simple rearranging. Moving on, it says that which statement correctly describes a change of state? A gas condensing to form a solid, it's indeed a change of state because condensation is gas to liquid. Yeah. Liquid does not melt to form a solid, it freezes. And a solid does not condense to form liquid, it melts. A solid does not boil, a liquid boils to form gas. The diagram shows a pan that is used for cooking food. Which material should be as a base and a handle? Now, this question has been asked before. The base should be made of a good thermal conductor, whereas the handle should be made of a poor thermal conductor. Good thermal conductor means that the heat will be connected easily to the food, allowed it to cook, and the handle would be a poor thermal conductor, hence it would get very hot, making it easy to hold the pan. Now, solar heating panels consist of pipes carrying water that absorb the radiation. Which texture and color is the surface of the pipe so that the temperature of the water rises at the quickest rate? Now, remember that dull surfaces are the best and the black color is the best. So, dull black would be the best. Now, you might confuse between, okay, you can eliminate white as we all know it's a poor conductor, but what about dull and shiny? Remember, the shiny would still reflect, whereas dull would absorb all of it. Therefore, dull is the best. When pollen grains are in water or viewed through a microscope, they are seen to be in continuous random motion. What causes this motion? It's not the convection currents, but it's basically because they have been collided by the they have random collisions with the water molecules. Bombarded by a single molecule, and uneven bombardment different sides by the water molecules. It's not a single molecule, there are thousands of molecules, therefore the correct answer would be C. A circular flat bottom dish contains 100 centimeters of water, and students are asked how could you increase the rate of evaporation. You could pour it into water into a flat bottom dish of larger diameter, so that would increase because a larger surface area means that there's more room for particles to escape from the surface. Cool the dish? No. When you cool it, the particles have less energy, therefore you will find it difficult to escape. And create an air over that would basically carry away the particles before they can return to the liquid. So student 1 and 3 are correct, whereas 2 is incorrect. Matter consists of very small particles in a continuous state of matter. Which law describes the behavior of particles in a liquid? Now, liquid particles do not move randomly at high speed. So A is not wrong, A is wrong, and D is wrong. They don't vibrate in fixed positions, that's in solids, but they vibrate in but change positions, that's in liquid. The diagram shows the experiment that is used on the heating of aluminium. Alright, the table gives the result. The specific heat capacity is this much. What is the maximum possible temperature? Now, first of all, you're going to learn the equation that Q is equals to energy is equals to M, mass into change in temperature. Alright, now we want to work out the change in temperature. Change in temperature would equal the energy of supply. The energy is equals to, okay, how do you find the energy? Voltmeter reading is given, current is given, and time is given. Energy is equals to voltmeter reading into the current reading into the time. This is basically 18,000. So 18,000, 12 into 5 into 300 is 18,000. Divided by, what's the mass? Are we given the mass? 0.8. And what is the specific capacity? 900. So if you divide this by 0.8 into 900, that gives you 25. So correct answer would be 15C, which is 25. The diagram shows a wave. So we know that for this wave, the P does not resemble anything because it's just going from the top to the bottom. and this would be, I think, the 2 times the amplitude. Q is representing the wavelength because one point on the wave to the same point, so this is our lambda, which is wavelength. R is representing amplitude because the undisturbed position to the maximum or the minimum displacement, so this is your amplitude. And S is not representing anything significant. So it says that which one will be the wavelength is basically Q. Q is wavelength and R is amplitude. So answer would be C. Other all options are not correct. As you can see, you don't get the speed, so instantly you can get that A, B is wrong, and R is not, R is amplitude, but S is not the wavelength, Q is the wavelength. Wavelength, one point on the wave to the same point in the next wave. The next says that which word describes the sum factors of an image which are formed by a plane mirror. Now, a plane mirror always gives you a virtual image which is the same size as the object. This is a property which I've learned. The range of audible frequencies for elephants is 10 Hz to 12,000 Hz, and for horses it's 55 Hz to 33,000 Hz. Which statement about the range of audible frequencies for a healthy human here is correct? Now, if you can think of this, so if you go through the options quickly, you will realize it asks us to compare the human ears with the sound heard by elephants and horses. Instantly, humans basically have 20 Hz to 20,000 Hz. That means then we cannot hear all the sounds that can be heard by the elephants because they're hearing below 20 Hz, and horses can hear above 20,000 Hz. So the correct answer, if you see here, would be D, because the human here cannot hear all of the sounds heard by elephants nor those heard by horses. Horses can hear much greater frequencies and elephants can hear lower than us. An object is placed in a front mirror. The ray diagram shows the reflection of one ray of light from the object. Where does the mirror form? Now, instantly you can realize it's the same distance and it would be parallel. So this one, option A, would be correct, because option B, the image does not form there and image seems to appear from behind the mirror. So it should be option A. Light refracts as it enters the glass on the air shown. Which expression is equal to the refractive index of the glass? Refractive index is basically sine I over sine R. We need to work out what's sine I. This is not and theta 1 is basically not sine I because this is not on the normal. So this would be 90 minus theta. So our sine 90 minus theta over O2. So this would be the option, correct option. Now let's move on to the next question. Next up, we have got question number 21, which is that light is traveling at a speed of 3.010 to the power 8. It strikes the surface of the glass block and undergoes refraction. The diagram shows the ray of light before and after it enters. What is the speed of light? Now, to calculate the speed of light, we need to calculate the refractive index of this glass. The refractive index would be sine 55, which is the angle of incidence, over sine 33, which is the angle of refraction. When you do this, you get around 1.50. You just use the value in the calculator. Now, we also know that the refractive index is equal to the speed of light in air over the speed of light in the glass. So n is equals to speed in air over the speed in glass. You cannot write this equation as in your theory answers. I'm just writing it here for the explanation. So in order to calculate the speed in glass, we would do the speed in air divided by the answer we have got for the refractive index. That is equals to 19946, which is rounded down to 2.0 to the power 8 meters per second. Which row about converging lenses and diverging lenses is correct? The converging lenses do always produce inverted images? No, because if the object is clasped in between the focal length and the center, then it would produce a virtual image. They can be used as magnifying glasses. Indeed, they can. And diverging lenses did not have a principal focus. They do have a principal focus. This option is also wrong. Converging lenses can be used to get short-sightedness. No, diverging lenses used to get short-sightedness, because in short-sightedness the image is being formed too early, like or before the back of the retina. So you need to extend the focal length, which is better than using diverging lenses. So in C is incorrect. I think D would be correct, because converging lenses can produce real and virtual images, whereas diverging lenses can be used to get the short-sightedness, which is formed by the image being formed too early or before the retina, back of the retina. Next up, a charged rod is placed on a balance and another rod is brought down close to it. What combination of charges would cause the balance? Now, before it was 45.3 grams and now it's 45.7 grams, which means that there's an increase in the mass or increase in the force that the X is exerting on the balance. Now, if these both were the similar charge, then they would attract and there would rather be a decrease in the mass. But if they're repelling each other, then they would want to move away and therefore there will be increase in the force. Therefore, they must have the same charges so that they repel each other. So X and Y should have, it says negative and negative charges, same charges. If they are positive and positive, then also it would be correct. What is the unit of potential difference? It's a simple question. It's basically volts. Now the diagram shows the transformer. What is the output voltage? So voltage over the secondary coil, output voltage over voltage across the primary coil is equal to the number of turns across the secondary coil or the number of turns across the primary coil. So in order to calculate voltage across the secondary coil, we will take the voltage across the primary coil, which is 22,000 volts, into the number of turns across the secondary coil, 115, number of turns of the primary coil. We have to divide it, the answer, 550. We get 4,600 volts. The calculation looks somewhat like this. So 22,000 into 115 divided by 515, 4,600. The diagram shows two arrangements of a pair of identical bar magnets, and there are certain points given which includes P, Q, and R, at which point is the magnetic field strongest and which point the magnetic field weakest. Now, magnetic field is strongest will be basically close to the poles because the lines will be very concentrated here. Like the lines will be very, very close together here, although they would not intersect each other. So R would be the closest points. Strongest would be R. We can cancel out option A because it says strongest is Q, and also option C because it says strongest is P. The weakest would be at P. You know why? Because they're repelling each other. So there would be a null point here created because they would just go away. It's going to go like this, and it's the same, somewhat the same from like this. You can check the diagrams and you would see that there is no, or there's very less magnetic field at this point. That's why P would be the weakest and R would be the strongest. It would not be Q. Even Q would have, but not as weak as P. So P and R, yeah. Now it says a nichrome wire P has a certain length 1 meter and a diameter 1 mm. A second nichrome wire has a length of 2 meters and a diameter of 2 mm. So which statement compares the resistance of Q with that of P? When you see that, compare the resistance of Q and P. Okay, now let's keep the resistance of this as 4 just for starting. When the length is doubled from 1 meter to 2 meter, the diameter will also double, so the resistance will double 8 because the resistance is directly proportional to the length. But also the resistance is inversely proportional to 1 over the cross-sectional area. So when you double the diameter, the cross-section area would decrease by a factor of 4, right? Or basically you see that you have doubled it, so it's multiplied by 2. So the resistance would decrease by 2 squared, which is 4. So 8 divided by 4, which is basically 2. Now if you compare 4 and 2, you see that it's basically half. So answer would be 27B, with the resistance of Q is 1/2 the resistance of P. A student has two resistors. One has a resistance of 2 omega, another has 40,000 omega. So what is correct? Now we need to calculate the resistance in series. Resistance in parallel would be basically that 1 over 2 plus 1 over 40,000 is equals to 1 over the resistance in total, which can be simplified to 40,000 into 2 over 40,000 plus 2, because this is just an easier formula to work it out. So 40,000 into 2 over 40,000 and 2, 40,000 plus 2, yeah, 40,000 plus 2. That gives us 1.999, which could be rounded off to 2. So here there's an option which says when connected in parallel, the combined resistance is 2, and therefore B would be correct. You can also check for series. Series, when you combine them, it would be added, so it would be 40,002. None of the options is given here. In which circuit do both of the lamps light? Now, would they light in this one? The current would flow in this, but it would be stopped by this because of the diodes, not A. Even in this, you see the current might flow. Okay, they will light up at once, but then it stops here, so current wouldn't flow. So no. In this C, the current can flow like this, and because it is allowed by the right, because it's right direction, and it would also go like this. So C, it would allow. For D, it wouldn't allow because again the current would be stopped here, only one of the lamp lights. Therefore the correct option is C. An isotope of strontium has a nuclear notation of 84, and this one, how many protons? So protons are basically 38. It can't be C or D, it has to be 38. Whereas the neutrons are basically 84 minus 38, because that would be 46. So 38 and 46. Remember, this is the mass number, this is the atomic number. The number of protons and the mass is 84. The mass is consisting of both of them, protons and neutrons, whereas this is only protons. So in order to find the neutrons, you do 84 minus 38, which is 46. A student is investigating the count rate of how does he adjust for background radiation. Always, if you want to adjust for background radiation, you subtract the background count from your reading. You don't add it, you don't ignore it. It would impact your reading and take repeat readings? No, because it would always exist. What occurs in nuclear fusion? Nuclear fusion basically is joined together. So two light nuclei joined together and they emit energy. They don't absorb energy, they emit energy. Just remember that nuclear fusion happens in the sun and the sun always emits energy, right? Now, next part says that a beta particle enters a uniform magnetic field directed into the page and deflects downwards, as shown. With direction of the electric field will also deflect an electron downwards. Now, a beta particle is basically negatively charged. So, in order if it's deflected downwards, that means that this side would be positively charged as per electric field, and this would be negatively charged. Because if this is negatively charged, then we're attracted to positively charged. So we have got both the sides. Now, what they like from electric field or from positive to negative side? So towards this side. So hence it would be up the page. If you see in the 3D way, if that is representing into, then this would be up the page. The radioactive isotope radon is an alpha emitter. Then an isotope of polonium is also produced. So we have to basically get that equation that 22286 Rn, when it's going to change, it's producing an alpha, which is basically 4 and 2, plus it is producing polonium. Now it would be the same on both sides. So 222 minus 4 would be 218, and 86 minus 2 is 84. Now it says that how many neutrons does it contain? How many neutrons? So 218 minus 84, as I mentioned before, that is 134. Which statement gives the two safety precautions you have to take when you're working with ionizing radiation? Remember, always decrease the exposure time and you increase the radiance, because when you decrease the exposure time, you have less exposure to that, and increase the distance, it would be absorbed by the space in between and therefore less chance of reaching the person. Which list correct the planets in decreasing order from distance from the sun? So that means that list, as it goes, like as it starts off, the planets listed, they're closer to the sun. Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, no, Neptune and Uranus. And this is further away. Jupiter, Saturn, no, it can't be Jupiter and Saturn. Saturn has to be first. Neptune, Uranus, Saturn, and Jupiter. This is correct because it was some Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus. Yeah, this is correct. Because Jupiter is the first, then Saturn, then Uranus, and then Neptune. So as you move towards Jupiter, the sun distance from sun is also decreasing. The sun radiates most of the energy in three regions of electromagnetic spectrum. One is infrared, one is visible radiation, and the third one is basically ultraviolet. Now this is a fact that you have to study. It's like just a knowledge statement that the sun always emits in three of them, that is infrared, visible light, and ultraviolet. The diagram shows when the comet is an elliptical object, at which position is it the greatest speed. The greatest speed would be at A. Why? Because the law of conservation of energy states energy is constant. So when a comet is moving, it has gravitational potential energy and kinetic energy. When you're closest to the sun, the distance from the sun is less, so you have least kinetic potential energy and the greatest kinetic energy. Whereas when you move further away from the sun, such as at point D, your gravitational potential energy is max, like at the maximum, whereas the kinetic energy is the minimum. Nuclear reactions in the sun produce large quantities of energy. Now, what is the process? As I mentioned before, in sun, you have nuclear fusion of hydrogen to produce helium, which releases large amounts of energy. The data gives the table gives data about 4 planets in the solar system. What are planets X and Y? Now, do not be worried because you're not supposed to study this data. For planet Y, we can assume that it's less colder than Uranus, so it can't be Neptune. So Neptune is not an option for planet Y, which allows us to eliminate this option. Planet Y cannot be Neptune. So that means that, okay, now what about planet X? Can it be Mercury? Mercury is going to be way hotter because very close to the sun. So it has to be Mars, and therefore planet Y has to be Saturn. There's only one more option remaining. And with this, we come to the end of this paper. So I really hope that you like this paper, you like this video, and I hope this video was helpful to you. If you have any doubts, please post in the comments.